Hello everyone, welcome to my channel about writing stuff. My name's Camille and I have been published. So my short story, The Labyrinth, has recently been published in the Colored Lens magazine, which is an awesome up-and-coming digital speculative fiction online magazine, which I will link below. But I thought in celebration of this publication, I would walk you through the life of this short story from inception to actual publication. I love watching people's stories on how they got their literary agent, so I thought it would be interesting to do kind of like the publishing side of that. You know, even though it's a short story, there were so many revisions and submissions and so much feedback that I had to implement that I thought it could help to get an understanding of what that looks like, you know, how much work actually goes into a published piece. My dogs are running around me, so they're gonna like bark and stuff, so just ignore that. Okay, so my short story, The Labyrinth. What's important, I think, to keep in mind here is as soon as I got the idea for this short story and I started writing it, I knew that it would be the first short story I got published. And I think that's important because I had written other short stories before that, you know, I was in love with and that I put a lot of work into. But there's a difference between loving something, a piece of art that you create, and knowing you are going to do whatever it takes to get to that next level. I knew this short story was going to be the first one I had published because I knew that I wouldn't have it any other way. So that influenced how much work went into this story, all the revisions, all the submissions, and this, you know, whole process took me a couple of years. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so first step in the short story, the story idea. Where did this idea come from? What was my light bulb moment? And I actually had a light bulb moment too. So it was around winter of 2016, and I was listening to this song, French Girls by the band Harvard, and there's this excellent line in the song. It's you know, there's a lot of imagery in it, but something along the lines of creatures walk the earth all the time on the dime. So I was like, that's kind of weird. What if that doesn't make any sense? What if we took that literally? What would that look like? So I created these characters who essentially have creatures tattooed on their backs, and they can basically call these creatures forward. They have this little silver piece called a dime that they have on their hand. The creature comes out, perches on the dime, and then goes forward into the world. So that was my inception for the idea, my light bulb moment. So then I proceeded to write this story about these two characters in this traveling sort of circus world that I created. It's very much a relationship story surrounding family, friendship, loss, with all of the speculative magic elements woven in. And I love the story and I was so excited. So it took me quite a few months to write, revise, and edit the story. So flash forward to about spring of 2017, I felt that the short story was done. Hint, hint, it was not. It was not done. Not done. But alas, I submitted it anyway. The first place that I submitted the short story to was Clarkesworld magazine because, for a couple of reasons. I enjoy Clarkesworld. I listen to their short story podcast. I'm a subscriber, and Clarkesworld is like the pinnacle in my eyes between, you know, the stories, not only the stories, but the narration, the artwork. I mean, I would probably give like a toe to be published in Clarkesworld. So I sent it there first, and it was rejected within 24 hours. Caveat, they respond to all submissions within like 48 hours. So 24-hour rejection didn't like kill my spirit, but it definitely hurt a little. So, oh, and that's the other thing too. Short story submissions, it is industry standard not to have consecutive submissions out. You know, you can't submit to a bunch of magazines the way that you would submit to a handful of agents at one time. It's your one story is with one magazine until they either accept or reject it. So the short story market takes a lot longer, and there's a lot more time in between, I feel like, than querying agents. But moving on. The second magazine I submitted to is Lightspeed magazine. Again, I enjoy their short stories. I'm a subscriber. And it did get rejected from Lightspeed magazine. But this time I got feedback, and I was so juiced because this was my second submission. And, you know, if Clarkesworld is here in my pinnacle of top whatever, Lightspeed's like right here. So, and the editor of Lightspeed magazine is amazing, very generous with his time. You know, his name is John Joseph Adams, and I'm sure he gets a crap ton of short story submissions that he reads through. So him taking the time to give me personalized feedback, my rejection, like completely just made me feel a million times better after that earlier Clarkesworld rejection. So his feedback was, you know, nicely written. I enjoyed it. Didn't win me over. Short, sweet, and to the point. And I was a little frustrated, you know, despite the fact that he said really nice things about my story. But it's like, why though? Then why did you reject it? Tell me why. I need some critical feedback so I can fix it. It didn't happen. So I was like, okay. So, you know, I win. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix the story. So I was like, well, I'll just keep submitting it. So my next tier magazine that I sent to was Apex magazine, which I also love. And, you know, after about 2 months, I got an email from Leslie, who is the, I think, acquisitions manager over at Apex, basically told me that they were going to give my story another look. So I was excited. You know, I'd gotten good feedback, gotten, you know, a couple rejections, but I've gotten good feedback. And I was like, well, they want to keep it. They want to give my short story another look. So, you know, wait another month. And then I get an email from the actual editor, Jason Sizemore, with the rejection and no personalized feedback. Soul crushing. So I sent the short story to Shimmer magazine. Also love Shimmer. Rejected, got personalized feedback. Liked writing, not enough new ground. Now, Shimmer magazine, I feel like, is one of the weirder of the already weird speculative fiction magazines. So I figured, well, they probably have stuff like this, you know, in their lineup already, oversaturated the market, which did kind of crush my spirit a little because I started getting the idea in my head that maybe my story was too similar to other stories. But anyway, so I sent it to another magazine, Strange Horizons, rejected. So I figured, well, okay, let me kind of read through the story. Let me set it aside for a moment, come back to it, do some revising. So I did that. I didn't change a whole lot. It was mostly just moving around words because I felt like the story I had written was exactly what I wanted it to be. And I had gotten good feedback and I just didn't know how to fix it. So come August 2017, I submit to Silver Pen magazine, and it was rejected, but their first reader, their slush reader, gave me a good chunk of feedback. So let me read this once again, soul-crushing feedback. An imaginative, surreal piece about afterlife and its conveyance thereto, and of yearning for connection. It is weakened by the over and unsystematic use of italics, and by its slipshod substitute of possessive for plural terms. And all of that is correct. So my main character in the short story had kind of a split personality thing going on. So there were certain things I would put in italics, but I wasn't obvious about it. I didn't hang a lantern on it, as they say. So I'm more than certain it came off as unsystematic. And then I definitely screwed up a lot of my possessive and plural terms, like mixing them up. which could have been fixed if I'd given it to a reader. So that's the first thing I want to talk about is I did not have anyone read the short story before I started submitting it, except for my husband, but he's not a writer and he's not really a reader. So that was a problem. And after reading this feedback from this slush reader who had read through my story, I was like, okay, I need someone else to read it. So I let a friend read it. They got back to me, and then I kind of made some changes on my own. And then I had made Twitter writing friends, which Twitter writer friends, if you're here, I love you because you're so great. So Martin McConnell, a great writer friend of mine, writes excellent horror stories. I will link his Amazon store in the description. But I had him read it because I just really, really wanted to make this story shine. I had plans to send it to the Writers of the Future contest, and I wanted it to be just the best it could possibly be. So Martin read the story, got back to me, said, there are some things you should work on. He talked about like the format and tense of the story, which were a little messy. He pointed out some areas where the world and the magic I'd created was a little jarring or confusing, asked for clarity. And I realized that to do this, I needed more words. I had created such an in-depth magical fantasy setting that for the readers to be able to understand it, I just had to put in more words. The story was already over 5,000 words. But, after I was done revising for that clarity that I was going for, it was over 6,000 words. So, but I felt good about it. So finally I got to the point where I was like, all right, let's do another passive edits. Let's change the name. I changed the name of the short story, and then I sent it out to Fantasy and Science Fiction magazine in November in 2017. And again, this was rejected, but I love the editors of these speculative fiction short story magazines, because even if the editor doesn't give you personalized feedback, the slush readers tend to, at least 50% of the time you're going to get personalized feedback. So the editor of F&SF, CC Finley, he emailed me back, just short, sweet, to the point. His comment was interesting premise, rushed beginning. So I was like, well, the beginning is one thing that no one else has pointed out as being a problem. So I just kept it as is. I didn't edit it, and I sent this story to the Writers of the Future contest, and 3 months later received an honorable mention. So the thing with honorable mentions for the Writers of the Future contest, the way that, what's his name? I can't think of it right now, but the top editor guy who runs the Writers of the Future contest, he's talked about if you receive an honorable mention, it means that you're like right there. You're not there, but you're like right there. So the honorable mentions was great because it told me I was doing something right. But again, I didn't know what was wrong. So I revised again, just all willy-nilly, revised the story. And then in 2018, I sent it to 5 magazines. Bourbon Penn rejected me. Hypnos magazine rejected me. Intergalactic Medicine Show rejected me. Gallery of Curiosities rejected me, with a note that said it would probably do better in a fantasy market, which I agreed with. And then I got rejected from the Baen Adventure Fantasy Award, which really sucked because I was a finalist for that award in 2017 with another short story of mine. So, that rejection really hit me right in the chest. And that was, early 2018 when I sent out all those submissions and got rejected. So I took a break. And I was about to give up. The thing with short stories is your short story can be in an editor's slush pile for like 3 months. So I was very cautious about where I wanted to send this story because I wanted it to be seen by as many magazines as possible in the shortest amount of time. So, you know, you don't want to just send it out and just have it be sitting somewhere when you could be, you know, revising it. So I took a break, I revised it, and I was kind of talking with my critique partner, and it kind of popped in my head that, you know, back in winter 2016, you know, almost 2 years before, as I was writing the story, I knew it was going to be the first short story that I would get published. And I needed that motivation to be reinvigorated. So I went online to the Submission Grinder, which is a collective website that has all of the open markets for speculative fiction, magazines, imprints, online publications, everything like that. It's a great thing. I'll link that below in the description. But I went through and I found, like, I was just searching for the one magazine, the perfect magazine for the story, or the perfect fit for this story, what magazine that would be. And I was like, I'll send it to this one, and if it's rejected, it's rejected. So in September 2018, I sent my short story to the Colored Lens magazine, and I had kind of forgotten about it because there's other things going on, writing novels and what have you. The editor, Dawn, emailed me a while later with a rewrite request. She enjoyed the story, she enjoyed the characters, but I had one problem character that she suggested I cut from the story. Wasn't really important to the story. It was more of like a metaphoric character type of thing. So I was like, okay. Okay. So I sent the revised version back to her. She told me that they would be doing like a panel judging, whatever. And then on December 1st of 2018, Dawn sent me my congratulatory acceptance email. My short story, The Labyrinth had been accepted by the Colored Lens magazine, and then she put me in touch with another editor over at her imprint. And I was so thrilled. Time out. The pay for short stories is not that much. So, you know, if you're trying to get paid with this thing, you're going to need to be writing way more short stories than I do. But I was so thrilled because I knew that this short story was going to get published. And the difference between this short story and my other short stories is I didn't give up on this one. All told, it took me, you know, however many magazines, like 13 different magazines and contests, 2 years, 4 separate rounds of revision, different readers, taking feedback. And my short story got published in February of this year, which is currently on sale on Amazon. So I'll link that below too if you would like to support both myself and the magazine. Yeah, so that is my how I got published story, which is long and rambling and blah, blah, blah. But the moral of the story, dear viewer, is if you're writing that story, the one that you know is going to be the one because you're going to put in the work and don't give up, because you'll find someone who loves it as much as you do, and it will be out into the world before you know it. Just put in the work, do the research, give it to people to read, and implement their feedback. So that's all I got for you guys today. If you have video topic requests or questions, leave those in the comments. And then the thing today, the resource, that one, God, I haven't done videos in so long. The resource is going to be the submission grinder. So I'll link that below for any of you who are currently submitting short stories. So thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time. But for now, you should be writing all the things.